I feel like I always get asked this question on like what the biggest difference is between my youth athletes and my professional athletes. And I feel like my common denominator answer is kind of, I don't know, maybe it's cliche, but it's all mindset. And I use the example of a lot of the athletes that I've worked with that went to UW, and you'll probably agree with this too, but like our Miles, our Trents, it was a mindset that they get to the field and, you know, they can laugh and they can joke around and they can, you know, do everything that everybody else does, but once they're set on doing something, then it's like nothing else is a distraction, nothing else is in their way. And I think that comes to like a preparation thing. So I think that UW just maybe did a really good job, and it really just shined through with the athletes that went there specifically. But that's kind of the biggest thing that I notice, and something that I try to instill now in like my younger guys is like the difference between high school to college to NFL is just like completely worlds of different games. Like you get to high school and you're like, oh, I'm the guy. And you're the guy for 4 years, and then you get to college and you're like, oh shit, everybody's the guy. Like everybody's as strong as me, everybody's as fast as me, and now everybody can play football or whatever else it is just as good as me. So what can actually, you know, kind of separate me from everybody else? And so I would say that, yeah, biggest difference would be mindset. And once, I also think, you know, it's, when you get to the elite level and professional level, talent isn't the issue, or talent isn't a question anymore. You know, if you get to that level, and, you know, I always think it's so funny to like watch pedestrians and civilians on Twitter talk about how they think that, you know, guys in the NFL are bums or trash, and it's like,
I could have made that throw.
Yeah, exactly. He's slow. I'm like, okay, when was the last time you ran full speed? But yeah, it's, you know, it's the talent is not in question anymore. It's like, okay, how good of a leader can you be, and how good of a teammate are you, and how well can you, you know, communicate with everybody else. So yeah, definitely mindset.
Yeah, honestly, like training pros, to be honest, you guys know if you've trained them, is not very hard. It's like very easy. Like training the pro guys is like the easiest part of the year, because they've already gone through like the natural selection to get to that level. So if they're in the pros, like they're good at something. And if they're not that athletic, they're probably very skilled at something. So it's very rare where we like, to be honest, and I hate to say this, but like you don't change a lot when you get guys in the pros. And in fact, if you try to change them, you might undo something that got them there. But all you're really trying to do is like look at it from a protection standpoint of like the first layer needs to be from a health standpoint. Is like, what are you missing, or what risk are you at based around like how you're built, your structure, the physical capacities that you have, and then some of the technical pieces if you want to add on that. But the honest answer, like even combine, you don't do that much. It's basic. Like my mom could be a great combine coach if she just like cooked for them for 2 weeks and then told them to go outside and play and then went to the combine. They'd probably do pretty well. Right? Because you're resting, you take away the thing that they're not doing, or you take away the thing that causes the most stress, which is football. You take that away and you have them run fast a couple times a week. Anybody could do combine training. It's not complex, right?
I think also too, I think when people hear that, oftentimes it's like viewed, or it's taken as like, oh, well, like anyone can just do the job. And I don't think, Les and I just had this conversation yesterday. When you're working with anybody, being able to connect and being able to communicate, and these are all cliches, but they're cliches for a reason because they really, really matter. When you're operating with people, and particularly in a combine setting where it's like, you're preparing for the greatest job interview of your life, effectively a track meet, right? And you're navigating a big group of people, all of whom may or may not know each other, and they're all trusting you in this process, and you have different personalities and different backgrounds and different attitudes and different moral standards and understandings of what hard work is and isn't. how are you able to unite that and at least create an environment where everyone can be successful and show up and be the best versions of themselves? And like, you know, it's an impossible task to be everybody's everything all the time. You can't do it. But I think the people who are able to work in those environments and have a lot of success long term and embrace it and thrive are typically the people who do a really good job at those things. It's not the X's and O's. And that's honestly, I would come to conferences and seminars and I mean, this is like we're reliving the conversation we had earlier, but I would come to conferences and I was so focused on the programming and the X's and O's for so long, and I was convinced that if I was just a better coach, a better, algorithmic coach than you, if I could just program better, then I was gonna be better, therefore I was gonna work with better athletes, because I was gonna get better results and I was gonna get to the spot. And that just wasn't my experience, dude. And it's still not my experience. You should strive for that. I still do. But the being able to connect with that kind of person, that kind of competitor, ultimately, I think has a greater impact on success than, your training acumen per se.
Yeah, so ask the question this way. If an athlete and their parent come to me the beginning of their 8th grade year and all they could talk about is this athlete making the NFL, what's the best thing I could do for that athlete this year? It's to prepare them to be a freshman in high school and to succeed in that environment and let that coach take them to the next level. I'm not trying to make them an NFL athlete this year. The dads will come show me a clip they've seen of some pro bowler doing this ridiculous drill, kind of implying that they want their son's training experience to mimic this. Firstly, your son's at a completely different stage in their athletic development. Secondly, I guarantee you that clip is the sauce on the end of a great training program that was mostly meat and potatoes.
I also don't know how to tell you your son isn't Jamar Chase.
100%. So we need, your son's not Jamar Chase. Maybe you could say yet, optimistically, but 90% of what we need is the meat and potatoes, and different coaches vary on that last 10%. Sometimes it's more saucy and sizzly, sometimes it's less. But what I want to do is cultivate the soil of their foundational training so that they can blossom and flourish in high school. Someone comes to me before they go off to freshman camp in college, prepare them to be in a position to succeed and climb up the depth chart early, and then that next coach will take all the credit once they get to the NFL. So it's about sticking to foundationally what they need. And I think the question, all of us didn't directly answer what physical quality is lacking, but it's because youth need all the foundational boxes ticked, not the fancy boxes. And if any pro athlete ends up lacking in a box, some coach along the line missed something foundational. And it could be unique to them because they're such anomalies, but you missed their difference. So it's really not about trying to get fancy. It's about just keeping it foundational and making sure we're clear across the board.
Yeah, that's surprising me. So you're saying, obviously, nothing's ever that simple, right? But I love the way you phrase that. It's something got missed foundationally, but it doesn't sound like any of the four of you are saying, like, there's this really common and consistent foundation that we're seeing gets missed, but like we're getting athletes coming to us and saying, how did this not get developed at an earlier stage? That you see they have those things, but it's not one consistent thing. And it sounds like all of you kind of echo this, like, kind of don't worry about us. Like, don't worry about what they need when they get to us. Worry about preparing them for the athlete they need to be at the skill level they're at now. Because if you try to think about what they're going to need later, you're probably going to miss those foundational things that they actually need right now. Right?
The only thing that actually jumps out to me that I see, not in terms of like a consistency in directly answering the question of like what is a physical attribute or quality that you see across pro level athletes that's lacking, because it's like, what sport are they playing, what's important, what are their natural tendencies, what are they good at, what could make that better. So it's hard to make that connection. I will say the thing that I think doesn't get prioritized often enough year round that ends careers, particularly in sports like football, is not enough emphasis on max velocity training. People talk about, he lost a step. I'm like, Is he sprinting in season? Max V, not running routes. Is he doing that off season? If you don't do that for 4 to 5 seasons in a row, what does it look like? That's not a direct answer to the question, but if there is a quality that diminishes the quickest, if it's not addressed regularly and consistently, like it typically is in college strength programs, it's that.
You know, I'm just saying, Max, you're trying to have 3.
I'm not, no.
No.
We wanted to make sure that you were out counselor. Okay, awesome. So there's one more question I want to hit before we go to the audience here for opening up Q&A. Almost every performance coach or performance business owner here is in the private sector, the private performance business owners as applied. And one of the things that we get a ton of questions around is just how to build a phenomenal team of coaches as a performance business owner. Obviously, this is a great example here. And so, Les, maybe we'll start with you on this, but I would also love to hear like Dylan's DC and Tim's perspective around like what is the key to building a phenomenal team? Like, Les, you feel like you just got lucky, but how do you develop the team that you developed?
Man, it's a complex answer. There's a bit of luck in it, but I think number one, you attract people based on who you are. So if you're not living right, if you're not doing things, you're gonna attract those types of things. Because I know from the opposite side, the first photo I showed y'all, that dude attracted a lot of bad people, right? But as I developed myself and really tried to work on things that I was lacking, I started to attract the things that I needed. So I feel like it's a little bit of luck. I believe in God, so like I think God had something to do with that. But then I think the number one thing that you have to do with people is you have to stress test them. You have to go to war because you don't know who someone is until they're stressed or they're angry or they're upset or they're angry. You have to go through these different emotions with people to see how they react. So for me, it's like you don't necessarily want to throw people in stressful situations, which I did to these two probably way too many times.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. But what are other ways you can stress test? You can go play golf. You could go play basketball. You could go work out together. Just find ways to like get in environments where you see how people react to things. And I think you could see what am I attracting right now based on who I am. And then to just take ownership. So like if you start to see certain things pop up, certain behaviors, it's like you realize that there's an aspect of you that's either allowing that or perpetuating it or attracting those things. So like there's been, not everybody that started with us is here right now, you know, but a core group of the people that started are still here. And I'm really proud of that because like we've been able to challenge each other. We've been through a lot of shit together, like crazy amounts of shit together. I remember with Dylan, we were about to lose the first gym that we got, and we go in the storage closet and we put paper on the walls and we start writing out like how we're gonna market and do this business plan to get things going, you know, and that's what it takes. And not everybody's willing to do that because there's 8 of us living in a 2-bedroom, right, at the time. Dylan was there, my best friends were there, my best friends from high school. Like I had a bunch of people. It was funny because I actually fired everybody one time, and I was upstairs, and I sent an email, and they were all downstairs, and they came upstairs like, "Bro, did you just fire me?" I'm like, "Yeah, kind of," but but those people weren't in the trenches. They weren't in that room. They weren't waking up at 4 a.m. going to coach the adults to get money to then afford to do the youth guys in the afternoon. And it's like you start to see who's going to be there in the trenches with you and stick around. And yeah, so like I don't have a great answer for that because I don't fucking know, but that's what I've done. So.
And that's great. I was gonna say like, there's so much to that, and I hate asking people to try to distill it down to one thing. That's not really what I'm asking you, but I think sometimes making it situational can be useful, right? So if I'm a performance business owner, and this is something that I hear consistently, right? It's like I'm ready to hire my first coach. I just can't find anybody that I think is good, right? That wants to do the work, that fits the budget, right? And that I really feel is like somebody who I would trust with my athletes and my clients and it's like really buy in on the mission. Now, I think that you hit on something really true, that's just like, well, the first thing you have to do is look yourself, right? I think the hardest thing about finding great people is first you have to be somebody that people want to work for, which is like the hardest part of all of it, right? But just if you were to make it more tangible than that, right? If I'm at performance business owners saying, I don't feel like I can find anybody good. Like, what would you tell them they need to look at or change to change that perspective? Or are they just looking in the wrong places? Like, this is something that I got.
If good is currently being able to run your systems and coach how you coach, that's good. Yeah, have them stand beside you while you coach. Go over it in the boardroom after. You're never going to hire someone who already knows what you know and coaches how you want them to coach, or they're already hired somewhere else, or they're already moved on. So that's part of the onboarding process. If you're asking qualities, like you guys said, multifactorial, but passionate and curious. And if you're a young coach thinking of the other way, how do I be valuable? It's passionate and curious. Those are the only two that are going to make you last here. Those are the only two that are going to keep you growing every time you're asking questions. How can I do this better? And the passion is going to get you through those tough times, because the tough times are going to come. And Les hit it on the head, which is a weeding out system, not really an initiation. But I used to wonder why Elias would have new coaches move the racks, scrub the ground with a toothbrush, put the rack back, it looks the same. It's because if you don't really want to do it, then you're going to walk away after that. Fortunately with us, we had so many off seasons or combine periods that were stressful enough or under the pump enough that it naturally weeded people out to where we don't have to do that. Almost feels like hazing, but it's the same quality of something tough is going to find out how much you really want to be here. And that was a good idea, saying, hey, maybe golf or something else does that, because I was just thinking, hey, once combine gets near, and we replicate combine starting in November and December, so people start getting in shape for the mental demand and realizing what our systems are and figuring out real quick if they're not a good fit. And it's they're still our great friends. There's no harm done if they're not a good fit, but you set the standard, you don't allow it, and if they're really passionate about it, they'll stay and you'll want them to stay. And they just gotta wanna be passionate, they gotta wanna be curious. And the last thing there is for young coaches wanting to stand out. There's always one thing about your boss's job, I heard this from someone else, that they hate doing. If you just find out what it is and get it done well, without them having to ask, you'll have a job forever and always. So that might be a cool little step for you.
Well, I always thought I was good at communication until I had to start managing people, and then I realized that I wasn't. So I really think that, like with Les and Dylan, for example, like I got to them and I think that I just saw their vision really early on, and there was kind of like this moment where I decided that like there couldn't have been like a gray area. Like I was like, okay, I see this so clearly, and though it might be 10 years down the line and damn near has been, like everything that I do will just go back to that mission statement. And so I think you have to, especially me being like a girl doing this, also like that shit has not been cute. It has been manual and not glamorous, and you gotta find people that are willing to do that. And I still struggle a little bit with that too, as I continue this and try to put more women on and put more women on in the space, is I'm realizing that that is hard. And you have to be, I guess, a little bit crazy to deal with some of people like this, and the athletes that we deal with, quite honestly, too. But you gotta find people that are willing to go through hard shit with you. And we've said it before, but I can teach anyone to coach speed. It's not easy, but it's doable. I can't teach somebody how to be a good person and have good character and have good heart and be willing to go. Like these two have pulled me out of some of like the darkest times of my life, and I mean that. And you got to find people that are willing to do that with you, because there is going to be times, I've known them now since 2019, maybe. And there's been times where I'm just like, I don't believe in myself. And I had to ask them and I had to call on them, and they were the ones that had to make me believe in myself. So I think it's more of a mental choice on, who you're willing to go to war with, like Les said. And we've been at war a million times, probably 1,000,001. And all those stress tests, all those combines, everything else, like that just kind of prepared us for, you know, continuing to build our team, and I wouldn't rather do it with anybody else.
Cece is actually the perfect example of something I forgot. It's who's always trying to add value over what they need to instead of trying to skate by. So several people came out, and how did Les identify early that Cece's going to be the one? And then another thing for young coaches or anyone trying to move somewhere new, how did Cece elevate herself? Everything was just kind of set out for prehab, and Cece just completely changed the prehab experience. Here's how it should be set up. Here's who needs Theragun. Here's how I'm going to do it for them. So instead of just it being there as an option, which we were already a couple years in the game, and she decided, no, I'm taking this role, which I wasn't told to do. So anywhere you go, this is a direct quote from my brother, aggressively look for ways to add value. She did that, and Les caught on to it first. He said, oh, she's going to be around, and she's going to have a high position.
She's also not allowed to leave. So
Yeah, this is death row, so.
death row.
I also had to mess up in front of like 30 millionaires, like one weekend. So that was kind of my hazing period.
I want to piggyback off something Les said, because it's so, it's congruent with my personal experience. I had a mentor, and he would tell me all the time that water seeks its own level. And to, you know, in the essence of what Les was saying is like, I'll speak for myself. I didn't start attracting esteemable people until I had self-esteem. I didn't start attracting people who operated with integrity until it was a priority in my life. I wasn't surrounded by people who were honest, authentic, until I was able to start. And look, I'm not saying I'm all of those things all the time. I'm not. Like, I'm far from, but they're principles that I aspire to be. Progress, not perfection, has been a strong motivator in my life, that principle, that theory. And, you know, I mean, honestly, when I first started training, like, you know, I was the one reaching out and, you know, use the word passion. I have a different preference. I want someone obsessed. If you come to me and you say that you love helping people, I'm gonna go, oh, that sounds nice. I want a sicko. I want someone who has, seriously, like I want in the beginning, if I'm bringing someone on, the qualities I'm looking for, I want someone who has trouble with their work-life balance. And I don't mean that in a way to glorify it. I'm saying, like, I got to where I'm at because I didn't love it. I felt compelled. I was driven. It was relentless. I spent all of my time, money, effort, and energy seeking, searching, being willing to do all that. Tell me to scrub the toothbrush, stand on my head, dude, I'd do it. I wasn't afraid to ask stupid questions or look dumb. I think the ethos of the question, though, is like, how do you find people like that? They don't fall off of trees, right? It's really difficult to find people who care deeply about anything, let alone the thing that you've built or you've created, and then now you want to try and bring someone on. So I say all that to say, most of the time, no one is going to be as obsessed or as passionate or care as much as you, at least not in the beginning. You can transmit that to other people if they want it, if they're inspired, but you cannot transmit something that you don't got. Okay, I got mono right now. If I kiss you, guess what?
Crazy.
It's over. You're gonna have mono. Period. Right?
Saying that while sitting next to me is nuts.
well, you know, we're not kissing, but what I mean to say is that you have to be willing to have clarity around who you want in a person. Oftentimes it's a reflection of who you are or what you're striving to be or become. And then you have to be okay with that person not being perfect. And part of coaching and part of being a leader and part of business ownership is inspiring people and showing them how to become that person by you being the fucking person. And then and this is the biggest one, and I'll stop because I get passionate about this kind of topic. Who here had parents growing up, where my millennials at, y'all are gonna love this, who you say, hey mom, hey dad, you acted this way, it made me feel like this. And instead of taking accountability or instead of saying sorry, they look at you and say, well, I'm just the worst fucking parent on the planet. You know? They turn it back around on you. Right, my dog, you feel me, okay? Right? Many of us have experienced what that feels like. Okay? So, as a leader, if I'm striving for perfection, and I'm putting that expectation that I want this person I'm bringing on who might not be the perfect hire right now, but they have some of the qualities that I want, and I'm going to be willing to take the time to instill those. When you mess up, and let me speak first person. When I mess up, one of my major principles in life is when I'm wrong, I admit it quickly. And apologize when and if necessary, immediately. Because you might get that person that's in the door you're real excited about, but if you're unable to be honest and show up with integrity and admit when you're wrong, that person who's really talented, who may have ended up caring as much as you do, they're not gonna stick around. Yeah.
Yeah, this is huge, and it's like, I recognize that it's not like, adjust your job posting to say this, or like adjust your, but I really do think that this is the underlying thing that if performance business owners real themselves and struggling to find people, like this is what's actually going on. Right? So like, I want to go to call my system. It's like, can you write it down your system? It's like not you don't have a system, right? Like I want them to replicate the passion and conviction that I have for the business. It's like, well, can you effectively communicate the passion and conviction that you have and transfer that to somebody else? So yeah, I thought that was an awesome discussion. All right, if you want to go to the audience here for some Q&A, really just open it up for any question on any topic. I don't think there's anything off limits. So I think Juju, I think if you talk in that box, it should work. Maybe. Try it. Does it work? It works. It works. All right, cool.
Oh, that's dope.
So the cool thing about that box is when you're done with it, you can just throw it to the next person.
That is so sick.
Talk about systems. Hello.
Big shout out C4. C4 in the building.
Shameless plug.
This is a very awkward box. Juju, I'm an owner of Juju Performance out in New Jersey. So my question for all of you, so we talked about elite athletes and training pro athletes and whatnot, and you guys talked about X's and the O's and all that, but a lot of people probably in the crowd are like, let's talk about the business side of things, right? So like, when you're dealing with pro athletes, especially now with the college landscape, you're dealing with NIL, most of these kids have parent agents, actual agents with agencies. The question that I would probably ask all of you is like, at what point, like how do you deal with that business side of still training them, but like, at the end of the day, you're still a business, so you still gotta get your money. Like, you know, some businesses may say, hey, just send us the invoice and we'll kick it back to you after 60 days of, you know, rendered sessions or stuff like that. So, question for all of you is like, how do you handle that? Especially for some business owners who aspire to deal with those elite athletes, like what would be your advice in how they navigate having those conversations and those negotiations, essentially?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you feel like is the most difficult part around like setting that expectation or having that conversation or implementing something there?
In my experience of dealing with it,
Yeah.
it's hounding the agents, especially when you have athletes that have the agents basically pay for everything. It's hounding the agents of doing everything, essentially, because now you have the parents that have essentially left it out of the athlete's hands, so like the parents aren't touching that anymore. The athlete's just there to train or get nutrition or whatever service you're essentially doing it. So now everything falls on the agent, and more times than not, the agent probably has more than one athlete.
Yeah, like honestly, and I was just talking to Danny about this earlier, because a lot of times you look at pro athletes and you look at it, you see more than just the athlete, you see opportunities. Like, man, if I work with Odell Beckham, I'm gonna get these. Like, you can't think like that. You don't walk into a store and walk out with something and not pay for it, right? You don't do that. You can't treat them any different. The price is the price, and it needs to be paid when I say it's paid, or you don't come. and I'm not making any concessions for it. And that's the hardest piece, because a lot of guys are like, man, if I don't bend over backwards for this dude, then the guy down the street's gonna take him. Let him take him. Cool, because he's not gonna pay that dude, and he'll come right back around to you, right? So it's really difficult, but like, I mean, to be honest, like we all struggle in it, because the game is changing, and I have agents right now that still owe me 15 grand that I see spending money on the internet that I want to punch, but it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant, but because you have to set that standard, because if you start making concessions for Odell, and Odell brings his homie, and he's like, yo man, he's not going to charge you up front, and you know, like Brian Cooler, you probably have more experience with this than anybody in the room. There's no clear answer other than you have to set the standard, and you can't adjust it based on who they are. The price is the price, and that's it. You know, so I always tell guys, I'm not going to overcharge you, but I need every dollar that I'm worth, right? I'm not gonna ask for double because it's Odell, or Odell's probably he's not even in the league. Like, let's just say
I wouldn't use that.
Patrick Mahomes or somebody. Like, the price is the price. I'm not going to overcharge you because you got more money, but I also need the money that that you owe me, and it's got to be up front or contract or whatever. But Tim, you had something?
Yeah, it's funny because it shifted for me over time. In the beginning, going back to like being able to do whatever it took, like no one knew me from Adam. So I trained all these Texas kids over here free 99, baby. Let's get it. Bring your boy too, right? And same thing with the pro guys. I worked for free for a year, and I ran the whole NFL offseason combine prep program at Collective for free. A lot of hours. Now, that was operating under the assumption that like, when I do this, I'm gonna establish myself, I'm gonna prove to me, to you, to every athlete in this room that I'm about business and that I'm worth it, and then the game's gonna shift and the landscape's gonna shift. The difficulty in that was going from the person you didn't pay to suddenly the person you pay. I had this conversation earlier in the truck with you two and Ariana. I've worked in other businesses and other landscapes outside of sports performance. Sometimes when you get hired on as the assistant manager, right? Everyone else in that building, even if you start outperforming your role, how do they view you? As the assistant manager. Still, even though you've exceeded the requirements for what it is to be that person. So there's no way around it. Ultimately, it comes down to a difficult conversation. And if you're at a place where you feel like you've established yourself as someone who deserves to be paid for your time, effort, and money, then you have to be direct. And you have to say, my dog, I need you to pay me up front, or we're not going to be able to train. And you're going to have that conversation with parents, with pros, with people the rest of your life. But I would be remiss if I didn't include the fact that, bro, I did it for free for a while, you know? But I don't know what your situation is either. Like you may be established and feel like at your place, but if you are, you got to say it with your chest and you got to look people in the eyes. Yeah.
Cool. Raise your hand if you've got a question, and you want to get that box truck that you by this giant.
All right. So, in this world that you guys work in, handling personalities is tough. So, what I want to highlight and tee up for you guys to answer, because I saw it firsthand when I came and watched you guys train, is this. If you work in a collegiate setting, or there's some settings where coaches have a lot of leverage on these athletes to be extremely demanding. In the world we live in, you don't have as much. So in your guys' environment, especially in combine, where you're dealing with very eclectic personalities, I saw it firsthand where you know the work that needs to be done in order to get the result that you need, but at the same time, you have to be very aware of how these athletes respond to certain ways of coaching, applying pressure, and at the end of the day, you got to get that result and handling that personality. Share some of your experiences with maybe some of the different success stories or failures you've had with hard personalities.
Great. That's a great question. Man, that's a great question. Dude. All right, so I have a learning disability, but I also had a brain injury. So I learned a certain way throughout high school and middle school and all that, and I thought this is the way that I learned until I had a brain injury, and like it wasn't crazy, but it was bad enough that I had to do speech therapy and learn how to read and all that stuff. And during this therapy, they taught me ways of learning that I had never even like had access to in my entire life. Like it was pattern recognition. It was like, one of the drills they gave me was like, you have 1 minute, take all of these words and group them and then circle it and then tell me why you grouped it that way. And I'm like, I never thought like that before, you know? And I started to realize at that point, like there's so many different styles of learning and so many different ways that we need to communicate to people for them to understand things. So like my mom is very visual. She's an artist. Like if I draw something for her, give her a picture, she understands. But if I'm talking to her, she's like, it goes in one ear and out the other, right? So in coaching, I think like the programming side is probably the easiest, like testing, programming, all that. Like anyone could read Dan Paff's programming and just copy it and paste it, right? But it's the pieces around the interpersonal relationships that make it complex and make it difficult. And a lot of times, like what we see is people acting out or being disrespectful or not caring. Like I promise you they care, but sometimes people can't express the things they're trying to express and it comes out in negative ways. And we see that a lot in Combine. Like we had one Combine where we had like gang members in that Combine and they're throwing up all these things I don't even understand what they're throwing up. And I'm like, what is going on? So like the hardest part was just like figuring out ways to communicate, to get them to open up to you and talk and building relationships. And once they trust you and once they feel like you genuinely care and genuinely are invested in their process, they start to follow along. And if they don't, you know, there's probably a problem. I've had guys that I've trained now, like I'm at the age now where I'm almost 10 years in Combine training. I've had guys die by suicide. I've had guys die by like other things. I've had guys go to jail. I've had guys get sexual assaults and those things. Like I'm at that age now. And I can tell you every single guy that had one of those things happen, like during Combine training, I could have told like 50, like all the GMs, like, yo, don't draft this guy. This guy's a dickhead. Because every attempt that we made to rectify or create relationships and do all these things was blocked and it didn't work. It's like, and you're not going to save everybody. And I think that's the hardest part when you deal like, this year we have 35 guys. When you deal with that many guys, that many personalities, like you can't save everyone. But you're attempting using like strategies around communication and teaching and finding different ways of learning. But yeah, I mean, I think CC and Dylan will, and Tim too, you guys can all relate. Like that's the hardest part about training guys for the draft. Hardest part.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like Combine specifically, not only do you have a bunch of different personalities, but you have now millionaires and superstars who have now been getting paid for 2 years. And you deal with those different personalities in the hardest time of their life, in like the most stressful, like, 8 weeks, if that you have, and you have to figure out how to navigate around that. And so I would say that I don't navigate them any differently. I just try to remain myself. I let them, come to me. I try to learn them. I think that, arguably one of my better skills as a coach is just kind of getting to know the guys and, learning their music and like what they think is funny or how they respond best or what cue works for them the best, or honestly finding their biggest weakness and being able to like walk through that with them. So I think that comfortability in creating a relationship is the easiest way to get through to them, because when they have a struggle or they feel like they can open up to you, then it makes that process a little bit easier. So yeah, you deal with a lot of personalities and you deal with them at a very, very hard time. So I just don't let it change what I do, and I think that they in turn kind of reciprocate that too.
Yeah, and to add on that, I'll talk to the guys, or I'll be like, how you feeling? I'm fine. 30 seconds later, they're crying to Cece. I'm like, what? Cool. But we know that, so it's a system. And you obviously, this is Cody Hughes. He built our entire like back end sports science for our Combine, so he knows all this. But we put a system in place that has subjective scoring. So like the guys say how they feel. Then there's objective measures to validate that, like force plates or whatever else. So there's 2 layers, and the third layer is conversation. So like you pass through those 2 layers undetected, that's rare. Like usually if you're in a mood, we see you popped up red somewhere, and then we can have the objective conversation that then turns into my girlfriend broke up with me, my car got broken into, but they couldn't verbalize it. And that's where CC comes in to have the conversation.
Go ahead.
Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I'd like to, if that's okay, if we have time. In my experience, my best skill set is it's not my IQ, it's my EQ. And I have my life experience, what I've been through, what I've walked through, what I've overcome, and not just those things in a vacuum, but the lessons that I've learned from them. And 7+ years in therapy, just, and not like, oh, this is what happened and I'm sad about it. It's like, no, like I have to, what are the tools that I need to show up as an adult, as the father I want to be, the business owner, the leader, the son, the partner. And like, I did all those things because I was like shitty at them. I was like not good at those things. And so throughout this ongoing process, I've learned a tremendous amount about who I am and what I'm not, what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And there's a confidence that comes from having an understanding of who you authentically are that can't be fabricated. And what that is it's a built-in defense system against everything else that's going on out here. So people can show up the way they're going to show up. And if you can recognize through your own life experience and therefore empathize and seek, and this is the principle I'd like to leave you with for this. Raise your hand if you're in a long-term relationship here. Okay. If your partner says, you didn't clean the dishes, and you say, get the fuck off my back, how's that gonna go? Right? That is an ineffective way to respond. That's not loving, that's not kind, that's not helpful, that's not useful. She's dying up there. She thought that was funny. So the principle is not to say, how is this impacting me negatively? How is this making my job harder? How is this making my day harder? The principle is to seek to understand. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just let it be for a minute and then circle back later. And which is the last thing I'd like to add to this is you get good at the thing by doing the thing. Specificity translates everywhere, it seems. The more time, the more reps that you have observing a group, being the leader of that group, and seeking to understand the individual components of that group, the better you're gonna get at navigating those difficult personalities or the way people act or how they show up on a day in and day out basis. And I promise you, because it's been my experience, if you're actively working on yourself to be the kind of person that you aspire to be, you're gonna be in a lot better position to have a real conversation with another human being that's under a stressful time period. Or not, maybe they're just being an asshole. I had a guy, he would take his shirt off. We were in a gym, here's the rule, can't take your shirt off. Guess what Chuck did every time he came in? Took his shirt off. The way I address things is by setting a boundary, by being clear. Eventually, I cursed him out. I flipped my lid and I lit him up in front of a lot of people. Guess what he never did again? Took his shirt off. Now, I don't advise that, but it seems that that was the only effective way to connect with him. I've only done that once in my career, but it worked. So, don't do that.
I think we have time for a couple more questions here. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Michael with Farming Force Club in Nashville. This is about like my 5th year coaching. So just as like a young coach, like fear of failure has crept in personally in my life. So what's some things you guys have done to overcome that like early in your career?
Just keep going and realize how many times we have all failed to get to where we got to. And if you could turn that failure into a little bit of reflection of why, what can we do differently next time, instead of, like we heard earlier today, don't repeat the same mistake over and over again. This guy failed 30,000 times, same here, same here, same here. And if you knew all your dreams were at the end of 30,000 failures, go get them as quickly as possible and learn from each one. And don't be afraid of people seeing it. So how many times in a season do people witness Patrick Mahomes make an error? Probably several times a game times 50 million people. So the best and most perfect executors that you can think of have what I call 10 million error views per year. You should be trying to increase your number of people viewing an error you make, as long as you're striving to get better each time, and just let it go. On to the next one. Learn from it, strategize, and let's just notch on the belt. Just be confident. People are here to see you, and you probably noticed the mistake to a 10 times greater magnitude than anyone else noticed. Sometimes no one notices at all. Just be confident in yourself. You're 5 years in the industry, which, congrats, already puts you in the top 10%. So you're here, you're established, but you want to take it another level. Everyone makes mistakes. Next job.
I think if you didn't have a fear of failure, you wouldn't be human. I think that would be a bad, if you're not concerned about not getting to where you want to go, you don't care. And I don't want to speak for you guys, but like the fear of failure, I think, is something we all experience, because we all have an ideal, or certainly I know I do, about where I want to be. But what if I told you, and this is piggyback off what he said, like, what if failure is not something that could happen, it's actually going to happen. It is unavoidable. You're gonna shit the bed. You're gonna have things that don't go the way that you want them to go, period. So in that sense, like, it becomes a paradigm shift from thinking like, what if I fail? Or it's like, what if I fail and I give up? What if I fail? What if when failure inevitably happens, I allow that singular failure to be the precise reason why I didn't keep going? Fuck that.
I think that's why I know you're a good coach, because you care. Like, you genuinely care about doing a really good job, and that's how I know you're a great coach. And it's like, that fear that you feel can't inhibit you from taking the steps. So like, when I first met Drew was, how old were you? 24? And I'm what, 5 years old? No, how much older am I than you?
20 years.
Okay, all right. But I got this 24-year-old telling me to do all this stuff, like get on camera, make courses. And I was so scared of putting stuff out there, because I was scared of like people attacking me on Twitter and Instagram. And to be honest, all those things came. And I didn't give a shit once it came. I'm like, dude, I'm Twitter fingering back to them, right? But it didn't matter. And then the other thing, I talked about this with Danny earlier today, is like, I had a fear of being wrong, but like, you're gonna be wrong. It's how you respond to that. So like, I all the time go, hey, I was wrong 2 years ago about this thing, and I've changed my stance. And the reason why I do that now is because I heard Stu McMillan do that. I heard Dan Paff do that. I heard these really good coaches start to do that. I'm like, oh, they're doing it. Wow, they're telling me that they were wrong. Like, a lot of people think that success means like you're perfect, and it's not. It's like, it's adjusting based around what you're currently seeing. So yeah, I think you're a phenomenal coach. I've seen your stuff on Instagram. It's amazing, but also like, your self-awareness is your gift, and you just have to keep leaning into whatever you're afraid of. You got to start doing more of. Like, if it's content, or if it's speaking out loud. I think public speaking is a really hard one. Anyone afraid of public speaking? It is very hard, because everyone looks at you and they're just staring at you. If you guys want to come try it, like, everyone's staring at you and you're like, are you hearing what I'm saying? And like, the first 30 times I did it were all shit. But what I tried to say yes to every single one. And Drew would be like, why are you going to that event in Iowa that 13 people are going to? I'm like, I got to practice. But yeah, like, that fear is just, it's always going to be there. It's just, you get more comfortable accepting that it's going to suck. You know what I mean? So.
I would say it's funny. We have done a lot of camps in the past, and we were just talking earlier about like our Speed City tour that we did, a couple years ago, and I went into every single camp knowing that something would go wrong. I just knew it. Like there was never a single camp that went exactly to plan, and to be honest, there's never really a single training session that goes exactly to plan, but we always have a plan going into it. I don't ever go into any session that I have or any camp that I do with zero plan, but I go into every single one of them knowing that probably something will go, if not wrong, it'll go different. And I'm looking at Jordan too, because when we were in Miami doing that speed camp, it was like, oh shit. And I knew it, you just know. So it's like, yeah, cool, fail now, fail often, fail early, and then, fail in the right direction.
Well, I've also heard, too, just the grapevine that Wes like intentionally changing things out on the last second.
Probably.
Making sure you're not doing your
He's no good.
I just got ADD.
Yeah.
It wasn't intentional, it just happened.
I think we've got time for one more. And it looks like you get to choose, right? Who you want to throw it to. This guy's like waving his hands hard.
Oh, over the defense. Let's go, brother.
Great
Kick
idea.
and throw too.
Gabriel Neal here with Pursuit Sports Performance out in Windsor, Colorado. So, Les, you brought up that point earlier, how more people get their news now off their phone, off social media, than they do actually off the TV and the news now. I think maybe I speak for a lot of us that most of our clients are between the ages of maybe 12 to 25 years old. They're online, right? We can't say the number 6 and 7 anymore, probably. Right? So, but I just want to know, like, what's your guys' approach to like social media and maybe some struggles that you've had, or like some successes that you've had with social media content and posting, or just pretty open-ended question there. Just like,
It's not a question for me.
I can start and then, yeah, but you have a good perspective on it, and you got the best perspective. So when I told you about Drew when he first started, he also had the password to my Instagram, and he was just posting bang, 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 bang every day. I didn't post a single thing, and I hated every single video that he posted. And the same on TikTok too. I don't even have TikTok. He has my TikTok. And he was just posting. It was just taking out of context clips, and I would send him a message like, Drew, what is this? Why are you posting that? And it made me so freaking uncomfortable, man. And for a while, like, I had to delete Instagram off my phone because it's just like, I just felt like it wasn't me. Like I couldn't connect to it. And there was a period where I stopped doing podcasts, I stopped doing courses, I stopped posting on Instagram, and I was just like, I felt so disconnected from myself because it's like the online persona. I didn't feel like I knew that person, And now coming back to it now, like, I have a different appreciation for it because it is a necessary evil. Like, you do need to try your best to tell the truth online and show what you're doing, and do it in like a tactful way, in a way that like uplifts others and shows your values and things like that. But like, I think there's immense pressure for everybody, like trying to get clients and trying to grow and trying to get deals and things like that, to start finding ways to grab attention. And it's a really dangerous thing because like, it's a slippery slope, because the more times you do that and it's successful, the riskier you get on grabbing attention. And you see people go way left in doing that. But I can probably speak for everyone here. Your best clients have come from word of mouth, right? They come from other people, touching grass. Like, go out there, meet people, and experience them in person, and do a really good job with those people that are in front of you, and they'll tell a couple more people, and they'll grow. Because I know some really good coaches right now that don't have social media, that make way more money than all of us, right? So obviously there is a necessary evil of posting and finding a schedule and how you're doing it. But you have to think about, like, if you saw your content 5 years from now, would you be proud of yourself? And I have to constantly look at stuff that I wasn't proud of, that like I disagree with now. But like now when I'm posting, I'm thinking like, all right, I'm not doing this for other people. I want to show people my values and what that means. And if you don't fuck with that, I won't fuck with you. So I'm not going to deal with it. And I try my hardest to do that. So yeah, kind of where I come from right now.
So I used to do this thing, many of us have done this, where I would look at that Joel Seedman clip that we just saw, you know, or the dude in the water doing this situation, and this would be my thinking around that. I would say, bullshit, that idiot doesn't know what he's doing, and influencers and social media is stupid, and this is why this app sucks. Full stop. Okay? Not wrong, right? Then I had something happen. So my friend David Gray, I watched him get on Just Fly Sports Performance podcast. He had just started posting, taking it seriously, and he did precisely what Les just explained. He put out really good content consistently with an effort of being as helpful and as educational as possible without being gimmicky, while also trying to understand what works well for his audience. And he did it day after day after day after day. And then I looked up, and he had ballooned up to 200,000 followers. He has making over $500,000 a year online, right? So now I had to sit back and I say, well, now wait a minute. Hold on. I need to rethink this. Seeing him do it and seeing someone I know have that big of a blow up made it real for me. And then I started thinking to myself about these people that I didn't agree with and all like the stuff that I think if we all put one of our For You pages up here, which, you know, we gotta be careful, but we just kind of went through the fitness landscape, performance landscape at large. I think we would all probably be in unison if we all just said yes or no on what like is good or what's grifty, right? But in him making that real and then me seeing them, I said, wait a minute, I'm sitting on the sidelines. This person that I don't agree with, that's putting out bad content, has a full career, is making an impact, period, full stop. Is it a positive one? I don't agree. I don't think so. But they're having a far greater impact than me. I'm over here in my self-righteousness and sense of superiority because I'm not posting, because I'm not like them. I don't know. Do I feel like I have more to offer than that person? Do I think that I could have a voice that can make a difference, make an impact, and do a better job than them? Do I think that I can do what I saw my friend David do? Or is he just smarter and better than me? I don't know. So I went to him. I said, David, what do I do? Because he had been begging me to start posting for a while. And I'll tell you exactly is it okay if I share with you guys what he told me to do? It's very simple. He said, you're going to post for the next 9 days in a row no matter what. And at the time I said, that sounds like a nightmare. Because I wasn't posting at all. Posting one thing, it's like, oh my God, I have to consider this, and the caption has to look like that. And I don't know how to edit anything. This looks ridiculous. And he said, precisely. That's why you have to do it. And this goes back to this young man's conversation that we had earlier. If I don't get that shitty content out of the way, I'm never gonna get to the good. Dude, you have to. You have to get through the ugly, awkward. You don't get to being a full-grown adult without going through your teenage years. You can't bypass it. You can't skip it. You have to walk through it. It's going to suck. The other thing he told me to do is, he said, go find 5 creators that you respect, that are in your space, who do well with their content, that other people enjoy engaging with. Find the things that they do well. Look at the things that you want to represent, take those templates and make them your own. I said, okay, that sounds pretty practical, okay? Find good people who aren't grifters, that make good content, try my best to replicate that without ripping it off, make it my own. Got it. So now I have content strategy. Am I gonna be able to thread the needle over those 9 days of making that stuff look good? Absolutely not. I didn't. You guys can go to my Instagram after this talk tonight, if you're bored, and you can see back in 2021 when I posted for those 9 days in a row, and it's like 3 different reels of like me in a kitchen, like showing how to do a bad hinge. It's bad content. It's terrible. But getting through that 9-day period changed my life. It really did. And I'll say this, there's a lot of good and bad about posting on social media. I'm not here today if it's not for social media. I don't have these relationships if it's not for social media. For me, I'm a high school dropout, y'all. It gave me an opportunity to connect with people in a way, bigger way than I can even quantify right now. So I'm biased. I think I'm a believer that if you do things the right way and you're willing to eat shit, excuse my French, for a while to find what works for you and you keep showing up, eventually it will happen. You just can't stop before the miracle happens. Because I see it all the time, people in my circle, especially in this city, they're morons. I love them, good people, dumb. Do really well and get to change their lives and impact other people's lives just because they were willing to look stupid. Yeah.
I don't know, I'm probably not the best one to answer this question because I've probably posted like 5 times this year and I only got 20,000 followers from one video going viral of like some dude doing a drill and they were like, why is he wearing a sports bra?
Only 20. Yeah.
That's precisely what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's my point.
That's fire.
Yeah, that's my point.
Elite.
So literally it was, I posted a video, we were in Vegas at a camp and
32,000.
you remember?
32.
Do I have 32,000?
You have 32,000.
Oh, okay.
Jesus.
Anyways, so I got that from that video being about so many people commenting about why the hell is this dude wearing a sports bra? And why is this girl telling this dude in a sports bra what to do? So I think that my perspective on social media is definitely, I agree with like Tim and Les on this, is like so many of our relationships have come from it. So me and Tim actually talked about this on his podcast, but when I was like first kind of getting into the coaching business, we were posting our, college dorm rooms, like with our cool lights with like no caption and shit, like nothing cool, like it was not good. You didn't see all the work that everybody else was doing and you didn't get to see, what different avenues people were in and what you could go into or what you were passionate about or connect and support with different people. And if I had some of that coming out, I probably, who knows if I would still be doing what I'm doing now, just because, again, with kind of my path, it has been a lot of doubt and things like that. But I think that social media, if you can utilize it the best of your ability and be the most authentic, like I love Twitter the most. And it's not even called Twitter anymore, but I love Twitter the most because people just say what they feel. You can post a picture, you can post a quote, you can post whatever you want, and people will probably say something about it, but at least it's like people's honest thoughts and opinions at that current moment. So yeah, I'm a Twitter girl, but I have, like I said, I get on Instagram maybe like once every 2 weeks, so.
This guy doesn't have Instagram.
Yeah, do you do? It's been a while.
I have an Instagram. I've maybe posted 20 times in 5 years because of maybe fear of failure or this looks fake or posting 9 times in a day. Do you really think that some of the 5 that I do like what they put out, 1 every 5, I think, man, you're just forcing it. I don't know what's pulled
I've
up
never
there.
even seen that Instagram.
But
1,000 followers by only posting 20 times is actually pretty
That's the one I've
impressive.
seen.
I'm not
He's
gonna lie
got
to
another
you.
one too.
oh,
That's the only one I've
Is that the
seen.
burner?
Is that
The
your
burner.
Finsta, Dill?
This is the Finsta?
okay, so
Everybody eats.
no, but to get to your point, the same thoughts that I have of saying, hey, maybe I shouldn't post on Instagram, I just heard from 2 people that have revenue driving from social media, said they had the same fear of failure or thoughts of not doing it. And I'm just sitting here listening like, damn, they got through those 9 days. It might be nice to be in that position now, but I don't have any doubts about it. But if you do, I would or if you're considering it at all, follow those 2 and say, hey, just get through those 9 and pick a strategy and go for it.
I will say too, I got through those 9 days and that broke the seal, so to speak. But until I got to a place where I was generating regular revenue, that was 3.5 years later. 3.5 years, but I think it's funny because oftentimes Instagram or the online social media space gets lumped in with everything's immediate gratification. Wasn't my experience. Was not my experience. I've also seen it where someone has a magical quality or they just look like a Marvel character where in 6 months they get to where I've been and it's taken me 6 years. That's good for them. That wasn't my journey, man. But yeah, I got through those 9 days, but I also don't want to make it sound like it was like 9 days, I was off to the races, and it was not linear. There were many, many more bad posts, so yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's clap it up for our panelists here.
Yeah.